What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We're here with some more MMA DFS picks and lineup advice for FanDuel and DraftKings. Another Vegas fight night. This time, let's try it once again. Serghei Spivac, Derrick Lewis. Welcome. I'm Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy. If that sounds familiar, it's because we tried to do this a couple weeks ago, and this fight was canceled mid-card. We'll get all to that here in a second. Joined after a 1 week break, a week off, by Jake the Snake, owner of MMA DFS.com. Jake, good to see you, bud. What's up, man?
Yeah, man, what's going on? It's we've officially come full circle. We had the Spivac Lewis was originally the first fight on Late Swap. That fight got canceled mid card. Late Swap was still a complete mess, and now Late Swap's gone, and we get a do over. We're fresh start with Spivac Lewis, like it never happened.
Let's do it. So, for those of you who aren't aware, as Jake mentioned, Late Swap is gone from DraftKings. A bit of a fiasco, disaster, one could say. And if you didn't get the notice this week that Late Swap is gone, we're back to the old ways where we just play our lineups regularly and we get to sit back, enjoy them, sweat them, drink, and watch the fights and not worry about running simulations and late swap in our small field lineups. So, with that said, this fight is a doozy to come back into after a week off and without late swap because we have how many newcomers, Jake, on this card?
I believe it's 10 newcomers,
10.
so pretty crazy.
10 fighters making their UFC debut, only 12 fights. So we have this rematch between Lewis and Spivak. Not a rematch, a rebooking after Lewis canceled mid-slate. So we have that again. And Jake, this card starts, as you see on screen here, at 10 p.m. Eastern. The main event's not going to kick off until like 3 a.m. Give us some context to this card. Why are there so many newcomers? So the people who are watching this aren't really tuned in, don't know what's going on. Why are there so many newcomers? Why is it starting so late?
Yeah, so originally this was going to be in South Korea. So this was the card where every single South Korean wanted to be on it. And they did a road to UFC tournament with a bunch of different like East Asian countries representing young fighters. So it's pretty rare for the UFC to do these tournament style things, but they had four different weight classes, complete brackets. Everyone got two fights to get into the finals. Well, everyone that didn't have a bye. So we have all these new guys, a bunch of new guys, South Korea, China, Indonesia, India. All these new guys are coming in, and I mean, I guess it makes sense to put them all on one card opposed to trying to break it up over multiple cards, just because it was all part of the same tournament. But that results in 8 newcomers just from that tournament, and then we got a couple other guys on top of that. And it made sense they were going to do it in South Korea. They wanted to, drive up the fan base out there, gain market share. So of course they're going to put all these local fighters on the card. But then the card gets moved to the Apex, and they're still going after the same target audience. So the TV time actually stayed the same. So it's 10 o'clock at night because they wanted to keep the same market share, get the same audience watching it. So they're catering to that time zone. And we're gonna stay up late and enjoy some fights from 10 till 3 or 4 in the morning. It's gonna be a good time.
Sounds good. I know you'll be doing it. I'll be doing it as well. And I guess you could compare this card a little bit similarly to the Ultimate Fighter finale cards, where we get a couple new fighters. The only difference is now, Jake, these fighters actually had some stats on UFC stats. So for those of you who scrape stats or use stats for a model or projections or whatever, you didn't have to chart it. We actually did have some stats for these guys, right?
Yeah, no, I mean most of them all had two fights. The one guy, Jubilee, only had one fight because he had one of his first opponent dropped out due to a botched weight cut. But yeah, I mean everyone else had two fights worth of data. I mean obviously we still went back and watched a couple of their regional fights to add to that data, get a little more context outside of the tournament. But yeah, I mean for the most part, people that aren't taping regional fights are at least gonna have something to go off of on these 8 fighters.
For sure. All right. With all that said, you have some background now. What we're going to do is talk about the main event, what it means for betting and DFS purposes. We'll run down all of these newcomers, their fight styles, where they come from, their historical level of competition. A couple other fighters on the card that only have a couple of UFC fights under their belt will give some more context to their stats and their fight logs. A fight that you have to target in DFS. Whoever wins is likely to score very well. You see the prize picks promo on screen. We'll give you our favorite prize picks play of the night so you can pair it up with some other props and parlay it together for a huge payout. And then we'll close it out with our stream parlay. Two different prop bets. We'll parlay it together and try to hit. So, Jake, we have Spivak and Derrick Lewis. Again, we talked about this a few weeks ago. Not much has changed, if anything. But just really quickly, Spivak ranks really highly in our model. That's an analytically driven tool. The tape and historically matchups with Derrick Lewis might say otherwise. Just how does this play out for DFS? Do we need these guys in low risk lineups? Can we fade them in high risk? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, everyone knows who Derrick Lewis is, kind of a lower volume power puncher. I mean, I think most people at this point know who Serghei Spivac is, heavyweight wrestler, not a great striker, but when he gets guys on the mat, he can score a million points through ground and pound. Typically gets guys out of there oftentimes in the second round. So, I mean, the fight really just comes down to can Spivac take Lewis down or does Lewis knock Spivac out? But the thing is with Derrick Lewis is so often we see him slow down fights. Not always recently. I think 2 of his last 3 have ended in the first round, but you look at his last 17 fights, and 15 of them have seen the second round. And they're typically lower volume fights. Guys don't want to run in on Derrick Lewis. He's a massive, KO specialist. Like, you got to be careful with him, especially a guy like Spivac, who has been knocked out before. Spivac's not known for his durability necessarily, so he can't just rush in. I mean, we saw Curtis Blades. I would say that's probably the best comp for this matchup is when Blades fought Lewis. We saw a super slow first round. Not a lot happened. Blades dove in for a takedown early in round 2, gets knocked out. And despite Lewis, I think he was like 6,800, something like that on that slate. He still didn't end up in the winning lineup because nothing happened in the first round. So, I mean, we've just seen him score, 80, 90 points with these mid-round finishes where it makes it harder for the main event to really score well. So if that happens, if we get like a second or third round knockout without much happening before that from Lewis, he's probably not going to score that well. I mean, it doesn't mean he can't. We saw in the Alexei Olenek fight, he still scored well with a second round knockout. It's not to say it's impossible, but there are ways it fails. Spivac's a little bit tougher. If he wins, like, it's probably going to be with ground and pound, but maybe it's like a hyper efficient, submission or something. Unlikely. Like, Lewis has only been subbed once. But still, it's not impossible that if we see a slow start and then he gets an early third round knockout that's pretty quick on the mat, or, maybe Lewis just gasses out. I mean, that's kind of what Lewis does too, is just gasses out. Lately, he's been accused of giving up. I mean, there are ways that a hyper efficient Spivac finish doesn't score well, but I would say as the Lewis fight goes, Spivac is still more likely to score well than most guys fighting Lewis, but there are still ways it fails. So I don't think you need to have one of these guys in high risk lineups. I think a mid round finish, we could see it get outscored by other fighters on the slate and not be in the optimal. And low risk, I'm never going to recommend stacking a Derrick Lewis fight in low risk. So this is no different.
Yeah.
I think that, one of them could score decently, but it's really unlikely they both score well. So it's not one you want to stack in low risk. And honestly, this is a bad low risk week. I mean, we've got 10 newcomers. We got an unstackable main event. I mean, I think you just play tournaments. We've got a lot of volatility with all these newcomers. I think you just really want to go after that, play tournaments, and just take this week off for low risk cash lineups.
Lean into that uncertainty, right? We have a lot of newcomers, and a lot of people are only going to rely on the DraftKings salaries and the betting markets. And again, there's not a lot of information on these guys, so we can use that to our advantage. Play for a little bit of chaos. And yeah, in Lewis fights, most of his opponents tend to slow down and don't and play or use a more conservative game plan unless their name is fucking Pavlovich, who just wrecked everyone in 30 seconds. I'm so tired of that guy. I can't wait. If we have another card with him, it'll be too soon. Anyways, I digress. All right, so we talked about the main event. Let's talk about these newcomers now. 10 new fighters on this card out of 24. And we're not going to go into our deep dive like we normally do on these fighters. Instead, Jake, I'm going to throw the newcomer at you. You're going to give me the region that they're from, their historical competition, their style of fighter. Are they good or bad? And what this matchup is like. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, we're going to start from the earliest fights to the latest fights. So 10 p.m., we got the first one, Jesus Santos Aguilar.
Yeah, a young Mexican guillotine specialist coming off a Contender Series win. Really smaller guy, T-Rex arms. Really one-dimensional, man. I think he's a bad fighter in a really tough matchup.
Very tough matchup against Tatsuro Taira. All right, let's move on down. We have to wait till the fourth fight of the night to get 2 newcomers matched up against each other. Hyung Sung Park. Guys, please bear with me. This is a nightmare of a slate for pronunciations. Hyung Sung Park and Sung Guk Choi. So these 2 guys, give me the rundown.
Yeah, so they're both from South Korea. This is the flyweight finals, the road to UFC. So no matter who wins, we're going to see a South Korean get the UFC contract at flyweight. This guy's got 6 straight finishes. I mean, he looks pretty solid. I don't know if he's necessarily fought the toughest competition, but again, he's fighting a debuter, so we'll see. But the guy's been a good finisher on Park's side of things.
Okay. And what about Choi?
Uh, Seems really defensively minded. I wasn't really overly impressed by him, but I think he's the type of guy that's going to slow fights down and potentially make for a lower scoring DFS. So not really ideal for either guy's outlook in this matchup.
And our model indicates that as well. Both these guys, I think, have either the lowest or second lowest combined OF index of any of the fights on the card. So the data backs that up as well. All right, moving on down, we have another fight with two guys facing each other for the first time. We have Rinya Nakamura versus Toshiomi Kazama. So let's talk about Nakamura first.
Yeah, so both of these guys are Japanese too, so we're guaranteed to have a Japanese bantamweight contract get signed here. Nakamura is a Japanese national wrestling champion, also a pretty good striker, so really well rounded and probably one of the best incoming prospects on the card.
Cool. And his opponent up against Kazama, what is he like?
So this guy's a one-dimensional grappler. He was originally like just a jiu-jitsu guy and basically realized there was no money in it, so switched to MMA, but hasn't quite figured out how to strike yet. So he really needs to improve his stand-up game, but super slick on the mat.
In a competition where you have to fight using your hands and feet, probably want to figure that out sooner rather than later. All right, next up, we have Jung Young Lee versus Yi Jia. Crush that pronunciation. Jung Young Lee, I think with Nakamura, one of the best fighters on the card that are making their debut.
Yeah, man, you're doing all the heavy lifting this week with the names.
I didn't want to put the burden on you, Jake. So I figured I'd do some work, and then if you want to say a name, that's on you.
I'm gonna stick with last names here. So I think Lee is really impressive, man. South Korean guy, 27 years old, 9-1, coming off a 36-second finish after a 42-second finish after a 10-second finish. The guy hasn't been in a fight that lasted longer than 42 seconds since 2018. But he's not like a McKinney type. Like he actually looks like he has the cardio to go 3 rounds. He's just really good at finishing people.
Yeah.
This guy looks legit, man. And if you looked at face-offs, he was absolutely towering over Ja. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we get another quick finish here.
Speaking of Ja, he has come from the Alaska regional scene of China, WLF, which, if you remember back in the day, there was a card where there were 3 or 4 fighters. All of them either got finished or lost, or their opponents put up huge scores. Ja was actually knocked out in WLF by a guy who lost in the road to the UFC, right, Jake? So, again, he's put up some big scores just because of his grappling, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on him as a fighter and his background.
Yeah, so this guy's a 145-pounder, and he actually got knocked out by a guy that fought in the 135-pound tournament bracket. So, I mean, that's never a good sign. He's the last Chinese fighter left in the tournament. Honestly, I wasn't very impressed by him. I know he has more experience than a lot of the fighters. He's 21-3, but I don't know if that's the best experience necessarily. He got a first-round submission in the first round of the tournament, and he barely won a split decision to squeak into the finals. I'm not that impressed by him. He shoots for a lot of takedowns, but I don't think he's really that great at anything. I would be shocked if he won this fight.
To be fair, I didn't think he even won that last fight. I don't even know how it was a split decision. Do you think it was closer than I thought?
I don't know, man. I definitely wouldn't have been like, oh yeah, Ja won that. I think that it sort of could have gone either way. Maybe they just wanted to get at least one Chinese fighter into the finals. I don't know, man. Yeah, I wasn't impressed by the guy. I think he easily could have lost that for sure.
Let me ask you one more question about this fight since I have you, and I'm looking for some confirmation bias here. So we have Lee, who's never been past 60 seconds in the last 5 years or whatever it's been. Ja, plenty of experience in grapple. Can that play a part, you think? If we're looking for an upset here, because we think Lee's going to be, somewhat popular based on his betting odds, but can Ja pull off the upset due to just the circumstances surrounding Lee's lack of cage time?
Man, it's tough, man, because Ja's looking for takedowns, and Lee's really slick with arm bars, as anyone that watched the first round of the tournaments could see. Man, I think it's tough wherever the fight goes for Ja. I don't see him pulling off the upset. I think on the feet, he's going to get torched. I think on the mat, he's going to get submitted. I really don't see this guy winning. Like, I'd look elsewhere for dogs.
Other than that, great matchup for Ja. So, all right, next fight we have Anshul Jubli from India and we have an Indonesian fighter, Jeka Saragi. So let's start with Jubli.
Hey, one last thing on Ja. I know he projects pretty well in a lot of different models and things just based on stats. So I also think he's going to be a little bit high owned. So I think fading him is good from that regard too. But anyways, on to the Indian fighter, Jubilee. He's trying to become the first Indian fighter to ever win a UFC fight. 28 years old, 6-0. So this guy got a bye because his opponent dropped out, and then he got a split decision win, and now he's in the finals. So I mean, the guy's fought once in the tournament, split decision, boom, you're in the finals. Not a great look. I didn't think he looked very good. He's just big. Like that's his main thing. He's just a really big guy, decent grappling. I would say decent defensive grappling, especially. I mean, he's long, but I don't know, man. I'm not that impressed by him. Like his corner was kind of having to like talk him up into the third round. He looked kind of defeated at the end of that fight. I don't know, man. I'm not impressed by this guy. Of all the favorites in these four fights, he is by far the least impressive.
Fair enough. So his opponent, at least more impressive than he is. Talk to me about Serghei.
Yeah, man. Sergey's he's a fun fighter. He's the first Indonesian UFC fighter, 28 years old, 13-2, has only been to one decision in his career, and the guy just goes out there trying to hit a home run with every punch he throws. He's a little bit short. He seems kind of undersized. If I'm his coach, I would consider moving down to 145, perhaps. But I mean, he just goes out there trying to murder every opponent with every punch, and he'll just sit there and throw haymaker after haymaker. I mean, he's a fun guy to watch. I mean, obviously, he needs to clean some things up if he wants to be around the UFC for long. But if he lands one punch, as we saw in both rounds of the tournament, he can put opponents out.
Fair enough. All right, moving on down. We have the final debut on the card, Yusaku Kinoshita. Kinoshita, I believe. So talk to me about him.
Yeah, 22-year-old Japanese kid, 6-1. His only loss was a DQ, not for stomping the guy out in the face, but for grabbing the fence while he did it. Which crazy Ryzen rules where you can literally curb stomp people, but you can't put your finger in the fence while you're doing
Legit,
it.
like he legitimately curb stomped the dude. I don't know how. When I called it, I was like, "Oh, well, that's definitely illegal." And it's like, no, they clarified it's because he grabbed the fence. It's like, okay, what kind of fucking Wild West shit is this? Okay,
I heard someone call it soccer kicks. It was not soccer kicks.
no,
He was stomping on the guy's head. It was crazy, man. I don't know anyone. I mean, I don't know. People haven't been dying in Ryzen with those rules. Maybe they haven't. They just don't tell people. But yeah, this guy's. People have been calling him the Asian Conor McGregor for his karate style stance and for the fact that he doesn't really grapple a ton, but lots of power. I don't know if I'm quite ready to call him the next Conor or anything, but powerful guy. He relies on a lot of head movement, almost like Dushko Todorovic, opposed to using his feet. He's just moving his head around to dodge things, which I think could get him into trouble at times when he faces some higher level competition. So that's something he might want to work on. He seems like he enjoys doing that, but I honestly think he's going to get knocked out if he keeps doing that for a long time. But in this matchup, against the guy that in Adam Fugit, I think he can probably get away with it. And I think it's a pretty good matchup for him to get another knockout. I mean, this guy is really explosive with his hands, but doesn't offer a ton in terms of grappling from what we've seen so far.
fair enough. All right, so let's talk about. I know it's a lot to digest here. If you want more information or you didn't want to rewatch that again, check out the Daily Plug, OccupyFantasy.com, where Jake runs down his top plays, favorite plays, line of construction tips. You want the rundown? That's where you want to read it. The link is in the description below. It's already posted. If you want more in-depth answers or you want to read about all these fighters' histories, in-depth betting and DFS discussion, go check out Jake's site, MMA DFS.com. Read the sheet where he breaks down every single fight like that, crazy detail. So whether you want the shortened version or you want the long version, we got you covered. So make sure you go check that out. If you're watching this video still, we appreciate it if you subscribe. If you like the video, that'll get you notified whenever we go live, upload these videos in the future. YouTube's algorithm's crazy these days, so there's a chance that even if you watch this video to the end, you may not see our other UFC videos in the future if you're not subscribed. So just make sure you're subscribed. It helps you out. Obviously, it helps us out. We'd appreciate that. So, Jake, we talked about all the newcomers. Still a couple fighters that only have a couple fights under the belt. So we'll say, are they a good fighter or a bad fighter? Is this a good matchup or a bad matchup? Based on to get some context to their stats. So first fight of the night, we have Tatsuro Taira.
Yeah, good fighter, good matchup.
All right, easy enough. Scrolling on down, we have Mandy Boom, who you've affectionately called Mandy Bum.
Terrible fighter. It's not the worst
Say
matchup
it.
for her because
It's a good
well,
matchup.
so here's the deal. It's kind of a good matchup because Bohm has really struggled on the mat, and now she's facing a one-dimensional striker in Kim. But Kim, I still think Kim's a much better striker than Bohm, even though Bohm's like a German kickboxer. It's a favorable matchup for Bohm, but she's still the worst fighter in the matchup.
All right, that's
All
fair.
right, all right. It's a good matchup.
Fair enough. All right, moving on down. You talked about Kinoshita fighting Adam Fugit. It's a good matchup for Kinoshita. Fugit, good fighter, bad fighter, good matchup, bad matchup.
Yeah, I think he's a bad fighter. Maybe he surprises us. Like the guy wants to grapple. You know, he was a high school wrestler and like junior college wrestler, and he's facing pretty much a one-dimensional striker here. So from that perspective, it can be called a good matchup, but it's a really tough matchup, and he's probably going to get knocked out. So I think we have to still call it a bad matchup and a
Fair
bad
enough.
fighter.
Fair enough. I'm gonna throw this guy's name in there because he hasn't fought in 3 years. And if you're new to UFC, like me, honestly, in the past couple of years, you haven't seen this guy fought. Do Ho Choi.
Yeah, man, he had a tough run. You know, his last three straight, he's been knocked out in the second round in his last two. He said he had like a ACL tear going against Jourdain in his last fight, and then he had to deal with the South Korean military service. He actually ended up getting an exemption, but apparently you have to wait 4 years on your exemption. He was explaining it in some interviews, like, yeah, you can if you're injured, you can opt for office work over military work. And if the office is full, there's a 4 year waiting list. You have to wait the whole time, and then you're exempt, which seems crazy. But so he finally got exempt from that. He dealt with a bunch of injuries, ACL, shoulder, retina injuries. He's finally back after 3 years. He hasn't won a fight in like what 2016, like 7 years. I mean, it's crazy to say that, but at the same time, I think he's a good fighter, and I think he's in a good matchup.
All right. All that said, good fighter, good matchup. All right, I think we got them all covered. All 75 newcomers and guys with just a couple fights under their belt. Oh, we didn't talk about Boom. Oh, you did talk about Boom. Okay, right. Okay, we're good. All right, I just want to get her name in there one more time for some reason. So, all right, let's close out the show here. I know it's been a while. So, fight that you have to target, favorite prize picks play, and our stream parlay of the week. All right, Jake, which fight do you think whoever wins is likely to end up in the winning DraftKings lineup?
Yeah, there's exactly one fight on this card that I really like targeting, and it's the Jung Young Park and Dennis Tulin.
See, I threw you off.
Like
I let you say the name that time.
there's an extra syllable in there, man. It gets me every time. But yeah, man, I think Park's either going to take him down and maul him on the mat, or else Park's going to get knocked out early. Pretty simple, and whoever wins is going to score well.
Sounds good. All right, prize picks. You see the promo code there on screen. Use promo code OCCUPY to get a 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. $300 to use on some props across all sports. Jake, which line stands out to you for this slate for UFC?
Yeah, man, all three that I put in the plug are pretty close. Like sometimes I have one that I absolutely love. I would say they're all pretty close, but the one I'm going to give out here is the Kim over 78.5 points. Man, she's a really high volume striker. On prize picks, you still get points for takedowns defended, which we have seen Mandy Bohm go for takedowns, but she's never landed one. I think 78.5 on their scoring is going to be much, much easier to hit than on DraftKings scoring for Kim. So I think that line may go a little overlooked, but I think even in a loss, you could potentially hit that line.
Yeah, because even if you look at her last 3 fights, she's lost the last four. But at least two of the last 4 fights, she would have won even in a loss. That she would have hit that line. So
Right. Yeah. No. I mean, she puts up a ton of volume. Then you add on the takedowns defended. I think it's a great line. It's almost a free square, you know, as long as she doesn't get finished and as long as it's not a staring contest for 3 rounds.
fair enough. All right, we'll close it out with our stream parlay of the week. I'll pick a prop. Jake picks a prop. We parlay it together. We all bet it. We all make money if it hits. So, Jake, I'll go with you. Talked about the fight to target Jung Young Park. I'll go with him by submission. I think it's plus 230, right?
Plus 350.
Oh, even better. Plus 350. Had the wrong number written down here. Plus 350 for Park by sub. Love that.
All right. I'm going to go with Dooho Choi and Kyle Nelson ends in KO at negative 165. I think someone's getting knocked out in that fight. I think that line should be even wider. And if we parlay those together, it's going to be plus 622.
All right, we'll take it. we'll take it. Plus 622 to get back on track here in the new era of MMA non-late swap. We're happy it's gone. Everyone's happy it's gone. Well, not everybody, but most people are happy it's gone. And we're looking forward to it. So that'll do it for this video. Again, we appreciate you listening to the end. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Just click the subscribe button below this video. Get notified when we go live. Upload any new videos. Give us a thumbs up if you like the content. Lets us know to continue to make these UFC videos. We do them every single UFC slate with 12 or more fights. So again, make sure you're subscribed. And any questions? Again, the slate starts at 10 p.m. Eastern. We're recording this Friday evening. Any questions you have about the slate, any comments, any predictions, throw them in the comments below this video. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to respond to you. If you want to sweat the fights out with us, want to get in-depth answers, join our Discord server, occupyfantasy.com/Discord. That link is also in the description below. Again, Jake's work, MMADFS.com. The sheet runs down every single fight. The archive, historical information about DFS slates, invaluable info. And then occupyfantasy.com is where you can find the daily plug, the quick, condensed rundown of the slate, how to beat it. Occupy model ranks every fighter FanDuel DraftKings with projected ownership, and our lineup builder allows you to build up to 300 lineups FanDuel DraftKings. We got it all for you. So for Jake, follow him on Twitter at DFS_MMA. Follow me at Brian Jester FF. Appreciate you listening as always, and good luck in UFC Vegas 68.